don't know if it will, but we'll see. Okay, so this is our third meeting that we just finished on sexual personae by Camille Paglia, and we switched programs or software for this one. We're going to use StreamYard to see if that works. And this time we're looking at the Femme Fatale as her first and most noteworthy sexual personae. So, all right, Jeff, I'll throw it to you, and you can kick off the discussion. We'll run down the summary here.
Okay, so over the last two sessions, we looked at her, theory of reality and her theory of beauty. And today we're going to start her first of 24 sexual personae that she believes help us to act in the world in which the forces of civilization actually inhibit us from acting. And in this particular case, we're starting with this one, the Femme Fatale, because she devotes the most number of words to it, and she traces it throughout history, starting with Nefertiti and ending with Emily Dickinson.
Today, so does she assign a particular significance to the Femme Fatale personae over the others, since she writes so much about it?
I believe it's because it's the most common that's found in the literature that she's read or that's appeared in Western culture. It's pretty much one of the more powerful ones too. And it's represented in literature so much that it represents something that is deep within our psyche, both for men and for women, because it's women that act it out and it's men that give them the power, or that are becoming powerless as a result of being in her presence. So just to start off, the Femme Fatale is in fact the woman who is dangerous or fatal to men. And that's part of the mystery, that's part of the drama, that's part of the attraction, the danger that goes with her. A Femme Fatale who loses the mystery or that power would be a failed one, and then she's no longer a Femme Fatale.
So a Femme Fatale is always successful.
As long as she's a Femme Fatale, she is successful. And by successful, it means that the men or women, in some cases, that have fallen for her have no chance. I mean, if she asks for something, they give it willingly. Those of us who are not in her enthralled by her can see this as pathetic. This person is like so in love with him that they'll do anything for them. It's pathetic from the outside. From the inside, you are in so much love that it doesn't matter. You're pretty much willing to give up your entire life for her. And that's a type of power that no other sexual persona can exhibit over another person. Okay. By the way, I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing anything?
Oh, yeah, I can we'll fix that with some. Okay. Should be no more echo.
Okay. So that's right. I don't hear anything. Okay. So yeah, it is the most popular one in Western culture that she's detected. And it appears more the higher the civilization, or the more decadent the civilization. So for her, decadence is an advanced civilization that spends a lot of time not looking out for its own survival. So if you're spending your time hunting and gathering, you are not decadent. You are fighting for survival. When you don't have to do much for survival, you're decadent. And the less you have to do to survive, the more decadent you are. She appears much more the more decadent the culture is.
So Femme Fatales you don't see in a primitive culture as much.
You do see them. They're just not as well developed, as you could say, as they would be in a more modern culture. So part of the mystique, or the mystery that's created comes with the technologies of seduction. She's talking about lipstick, high heels, stockings, anything that would accentuates the natural sexual triggers that women exhibit all the time. So in their walk, it's accentuated with high heels. Their beauty is accentuated by makeup. And anything else that can do that. So style of clothing and all, the walk, the talk, the look. it all contributes to that, and it's much more developed in a civilization, in a more decadent civilization. That's what makes it really interesting and actually fun. But what it does also is she forces, in a sense, men to give up on the norms of the civilization. So, as an example, I think I mentioned last time, we're often taught not to stare, and we don't. It's considered rude. But when a femme fatale like woman walks by, most men stop and stare. That is a trivial and very small source of the power the femme fatale has.
And,
And
it's something that we're powerless to stop as men or to avoid.
when you've fallen into the trap, yes, without a doubt. If you can't fall into the trap, she's not your femme fatale. She's not necessarily a femme fatale. She may be somebody else's,
Okay.
not yours. But if you've fallen into it, you've got no chance. You're Mhm.
So a femme fatale isn't necessarily fatal to all men.
No. But the closer you get to the ideal or the highest expression of it in a particular culture, yeah, pretty much anybody would. So,
Okay.
yeah, in regular lived world, when you just hang out uh, around at work or something like that, it's not the mystery's not necessarily there. So it's usually a novel woman. In real life, she often does lose her power when she gives too much, or when she's not novel enough, or when she's satisfied the man. That a true femme fatale will never satisfy the man and will keep him enthralled pretty much indefinitely. If she fails in that, she's a failed femme fatale.
So she's no longer a femme fatale, or she never
Exactly.
was.
But at that point, the danger for the man is that she's going to hang around. She's not the type of woman that you bring home to your parents. And in that sense, that's what makes her dangerous. Um, yeah. And she can appear in a very low and primitive culture. She just won't appear. Okay, so part of what the femme fatale does is create the mystery. That can be done in any culture, in any setting, in anything from like a woman dressed in a total burqa to primitive tribes where they don't wear clothing. In our advanced decadent society, the cues, the accentuations, the stylizations, and the presentation is ostentatiously presented in such a way that it's just much more appealing. It's in an advanced society, it's always much more developed, and the
So,
style is much more attractive.
so our the degree to which our Apollonian technology and society has advanced allows for the more perfect interpretation or the more perfect
Stylization,
stylization of the femme fatale,
yes.
and gives them more power.
Within the society, that's debatable. The femme fatale can hit somebody in any society at any time. And when you're in love with one, you're pretty much willing to do anything. It doesn't matter if you're in a primitive culture, in a medium civilized culture, or a really decadent culture like our own today. The powers, I think, is very similar. But if you were to compare them across time periods, certainly the more advanced the civilization, the more appealing or desirable they will look. The more they've accentuated and stylized the natural features of sexual attraction.
Okay. And what about her uh, Camille's little paragraph here on her
Yeah. So
kind of coolness and her
yeah.
affectiveness?
Yes. So she describes the femme fatale is not neurotic in any way. She's much more of a psycho. She she cares very little about the effect that she's causing on people. She takes it as I have the power. Um, and when it destroys another person or a group of people, for example, that is the proof of her power. Now, there are other ones that are not deadly to men. That's why this one is the femme fatale. She will ruin you, and you are happy to be ruined by her.
You're happy.
You are happy to be ruined. Everyone else around you will say, watch out for her. She's danger. And you will say, yeah, probably, and happily go to the slaughter. She's got that almost majestic feeling or nuance to her movement that she's above you. And really, any femme fatale is way out of your league. Doesn't matter who you are.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and you, any affection she gives you is taken in a sense like charity. It's like you are a beggar come before a goddess, and it's that love that it's almost a chemical imbalance, if we would say it in scientific terms, um, is is the power that she has over you, and it's a power that no man can have over a woman. It seems to me that it's women over men. This is an example of what she talks about in the as the Chthonian force that is so far ahead of civilization. When a man is willing to give up everything for a woman, a femme fatale, literally to his death, that is that's a power that is very frequently or very infrequently felt. And if you ever fell in love with somebody like that who left you and all that, it's a crushing force. Um,
Well, like the Black Widow or that woman you were talking about, the Korean woman.
oh yeah, okay. So the story went like there was a Korean femme fatale sent by North Korea, and apparently she seduced several South Korean generals or majors or something like that, and was able to steal a lot of secrets. Essentially,
And she
the
wasn't even
point
that good looking.
yeah, I saw pictures of her. She wasn't that good looking, and but clearly she could accentuate what she needed to accentuate, and she was able to get to the weakness of these men. And she essentially turned them traitors. They gave up their country for her. Um, that's an example of the power of the femme fatale, and um, nothing that men do comes even close to this. That's why she, I guess, spends so much time on it. This is also part of what makes her a psychopath. She has this ability, and it's not necessarily learned. It's instinctual. It could be instinctual. Plus, you take
Yeah.
the benefits of all the technology around you, um, and she loves it. It's a sense of source of power. So Paglia then goes on in a different essay to suggest that um, the art, the stylization of the femme fatale is quite popular in media and like cosmopolitan ladies magazines, women's magazines, and
Okay. Right.
she doesn't feel that these are exploitative in any way. So she disagrees with the standard feminist line that these are magazines that exploit women and that control women and that give them an unreal image to live up to. She makes an analogy with the football game. Men love to watch football. I guess maybe more in the United States, not because they want to be like them. They just want to enjoy it. No football armchair quarterback or anything like that thinks that they will ever be as good as any NFL player, but they still watch it. They still participate in it. And she looks at
The
the
spectacle.
yeah, the spectacle of it. She looks at these women's magazines that are demonized by feminists or some feminists and says they're works of art. No woman looks like that, and no woman could ever help to look like that, especially after Photoshop. But so what? You're enjoying the beauty of it.
So,
Um,
so when a woman buys a women's magazine and sees these images of women seductresses, femme fatales, looking just like they could just take any man, um, and without care, that this is kind of a female, that women are buying these magazines to fulfill some female fantasy of power.
it not necessarily a female fantasy of power, but to share in the art. So, um, analogous with a football, good play. You watch a football game for the ideal play, for like the perfect play, how you defeated the opponent and you saw it firsthand, you saw it live. There's it's not to be them; it's to enjoy the spectacle. In the same way, these images that are photoshopped, you take real women, you put them in a really wonderful setting with incredible props, and then you Photoshop it some more so it's hyper beautiful, more beautiful than reality. That's art, and these kind of magazines are high art in the late 20th and early 21st century. Um, they are not meant to be railed against. The idea that you can't find these women beautiful suggests that there's something mentally wrong with you, both for women and men. So she
Well,
says
wait,
that. Mhm.
are, I don't think feminists are arguing that you shouldn't find them beautiful. I think they would argue that it's a very narrow aesthetic form of beauty built for men, and that objectifies women,
So
and
mhm. I think
and
she would disagree with the built for men. It's built for women. Women buy these magazines, not so much
well,
men.
what about the men's magazines? What about Hustler, Playboy, even the ones where women are clothed, Maxim, all these men's magazines, fitness magazines where women look similar, but it's kind of under a different context.
It is a very different context. It's a male audience.
Yeah.
Uh,
So does
the
that
the
matter?
male, pardon?
So does that matter who the audience is?
Yes, you can see the very difference between men's magazines and women's magazines. I believe she would say that women's magazines are more beautiful, are higher forms of art.
Really?
Uh, I would think so. I'm extrapolating. I don't know if she exactly says that. Um, yeah, I would say that. The point again is this is art. It's meant to enrich our lives, to bring beauty into it. Uh, we stylize nature and make it better through Amazonian technologies, including Photoshop. Um, and the fact that, in getting back to football analogy, the high definition following the ball and putting all those extra little lines to show everything, that's part of enhancing the natural experience. And she has no problem with that. That's part of decadent society, and the more decadent, the better for
Okay,
her.
but doesn't it? These images, don't they normalize a certain kind of male-centric view of what women should look like and aspire to, and kind of undermine women who maybe don't want to look like that or don't care to?
I don't believe she thinks that. Uh, you're participating in art. You're participating in beauty. Again, she denies
So even
the. Mhm.
so, even if you're a woman and you have no uh, personal desire to be a femme fatale, or even I don't know, dress up for men in any way, that you should still be able to appreciate the art of the femme fatale.
Yes, and I think that she would say most women dressed up for women or
She
for
would say that.
themselves. And but again, the style of art changes over time. This is what it is today. Um, if we were to look back in time, we would see there was academy French painting and mannerism, Dutch realism. These were all different styles, and they had their own appeal. They may have also been the height of popularity at one time. Today, it's different, and this is what it is today. It's not good or bad. It's not exploitative. I mean, there's always exploitation in some sense at the very margins, but supermodels are not exploited. If you're getting making $1 million and your boss is making $1 billion, that's not exploitation.
I mean, as a Marxist, I would disagree, but
Yes, as a
she doesn't
Marxist.
feel that.
But I mean, if you're in a position where you can't feed yourself and you have to do things you wouldn't want to do otherwise, that's exploitation. But if you choose to be a supermodel, you're getting paid a couple $1 million a year. That's not exploitation, not in our society. She looks at these images in men's and women's magazines, and they're not exploited. They're not setting up an unreal
But
standard of beauty.
someone
Mhm.
is profiting off them.
Oh yeah, people profit all the time. I get you buy a coffee, and I profit from the feeling of having bought a coffee. Tim Hortons logo.
Technically,
Yeah.
you enjoy the feeling, but you bought that feeling, but you didn't
Yes.
profit.
Okay. I didn't profit in monetary
So
terms. You're
someone profited off of the labor of someone else, and someone is profiting off of the labor and the good looks of a femme fatale model.
yes. Not necessarily a bad thing. It depends again if the person was free to do it or not. In that sense, she's a small L libertarian. Um, you should
She
be free
should.
to do that.
Okay, I'm curious about this point. The femme fatale is one of the most mesmerizing of sexual personae. She is not fiction, but an extrapolation of biologic realities.
Yes.
In her,
So again, all sexual attraction starts in in nature with the evolutionary biological cues that have been bred into us for hundreds of thousands of years. What civilization does, it limits our abilities to procreate. We can no longer let our lust and violence run rampant. So we're taught not to do this, not to do that, not to do that. And if we were to follow all the rules and regulations of society, of religion, of decent society, I guess you could say, we would never procreate and the species would die out.
So we
Mhm.
need characters, personas like the femme fatale, to exaggerate femininity, the biological realities of femininity. Is that what she's saying?
Uh, we do
In
it.
order to break men out of the Apollonian
Delusion.
civilization state. Yes.
And to feel the danger of power. It's not so much for men; it's for both. Because women have a whole set of things that they're prohibited by taboo and society and all as well.
Right.
The point of them
Because
is
men lose with a femme fatale.
oh, in the case of the femme fatale, yes. Some may just play the femme fatale until they want to lose. So, how you play the femme fatale is your own particular style. You may want to find a husband that way, in which case you don't want to kill him. You just want to act like you could kill him.
Well,
Um,
then wouldn't you not be a femme fatale if you're looking for a husband? Because femme fatales they play men.
yes, that's right. A femme fatale does not. You're right. The proper one might be better described as an Amazon, and we'll get to her in 2 sessions from now. Um, yes, the femme fatale is more the psychopath. They're the ones who are amoral. They are indifferent to the sufferings of others, and she just loves to test her power in that sense. What feminists or her critique of feminism's critique of the femme fatale goes something like this. She critiques feminists who dismiss the femme fatale as either a fiction or a cartoon or as misappropriation of women's wilds as because they don't have political power. She's saying, "Oh, they are so blind." Um, the femme fatale has more power than anybody else in history, even dictators, because they will fall for them. And it's a different kind of power. Like a femme fatale will not get into a sword fight or into a punching fight with another man or anything like that. She doesn't need to. That's part of it. If, when she attracts a guy and traps him, it doesn't matter if you are like the richest man in the world or the most powerful man in the world. You are subservient to her, and a good femme fatale can do that for a lifetime.
All right. Before we move on to the examples, I want to just go over the one sentence here I like, the beginning
Okay.
of the third paragraph. Men everywhere are stupid and delusional.
Yes, they think they know when in fact they do not. They think they can control when in fact they cannot.
And that's what the embodiment of femme fatale means, right?
Exactly, yes. You think you're in control, or maybe you even know you're not in control, but you're happy to do that. You put her on a pedestal. In a sense, you put her on a pedestal, but more like you put her in command, um, and happily doing that. And you're willing to happily sacrifice yourself to her at any time.
It's funny because what do they call it? They call it game or pickup artistry.
Yeah.
One of the rules is they tell you is to never put the women on a pedestal
Well, that
because
could be their division.
you can fall prey to the femme fatale, I guess, or just make yourself into a beta male and not where you need to go.
Well, all men who fall for a femme fatale are not the alpha male. They lose alpha male status at that point. They become puppy dogs. So they may have been an alpha male, may have been the alpha male, but if he falls into the clutches of a femme fatale, he's a puppy dog.
And if that femme fatale, doesn't matter how alpha he is, if she chooses to, she can victimize him.
Yes.
If it's her will. That's
yes.
the point, right?
That's
so
exactly
it doesn't matter.
The point. She is dangerous to men.
Okay, let's go on to the examples then.
Okay, so the first one she offers is the bust of Nefertiti and compares her with the Venus of Wallendorf. These are two statues, one from like 30,000 BC and one from ancient Egypt. And Nefertiti's bust is perfectly stylized. The lines are clean, clear, beautiful, hyper real, in fact. It's probably very few women have ever looked like that. She describes her as the first Apollonian sex symbol in history that has survived to the present day. There may have been other ones, but she's the one that survived to the present day.
Okay, I'm going to hold on a sec. I'm going to try to share my screen with the viewers here. Hold on, so they can see the image I found. Share screen, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's hold on. StreamYard, Firefox, I think. Allow. Okay, I hope this works. That didn't work. That didn't work at all. Remove from stream. Share. One second. Share screen. Select window. I think StreamYard, Mozilla Fox. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Got it. Cannot allow. What?
I think you need a new tab at this point.
Do you see it?
I can see your screen. I can see your mouse moving. I think what you need to do is open it up in another tab and then show that tab.
Do you see Nefertiti now?
Nope.
Okay, shoot. You're right. I do need to do that. Okay. Nefertiti bust. Okay. Nope, that's wrong. Get rid of. Share screen. Okay, now we got it. And it is Nefertiti bust. Desktop. StreamYard. Why is it not working? Allow? No, that's not right.
I see your files.
All right, never mind.
Okay. Anyways, if you were to look her up, you would see she's stylized beauty. Probably very few women have ever lived that look like that, and they might be for a very, very short few period time in their life if they ever do. Plus, there's additional. There's makeup on her. There's she's wearing a hat. I guess a Egyptian kind of style hat from the ancient Egyptian era, and she looks very femininely beautiful. Compare that with the Venus of Wallendorf. She has no feet. She's got no hands. She's got very little stubby legs and arms. You can't see her face, but you can tell she's a woman. She's got all the other attributes of woman. She's clearly had many children. The fact that somebody made a figurine of her, maybe a goddess or maybe just a trinket or a toy, we don't know. But the point is that somebody went to the trouble of making this. They felt there was some beauty in that. The difference between these two is an example of primitive beauty versus Apollonian decadent beauty.
So yeah, right. So it for the first one to be seen as beauty, you have to be in a civilizational state.
No, you can be seen beautiful anywhere, but to see the stylized, the accentuated, and the ostentatiously displayed beauty, you have to be in a much more civilized era.
Right. And the other one is more Chthonian. More closer to nature.
Yes. Well, the point of the other one is that you're already, the point of the more civilized one is that you're further away from nature, and so you've got more of the taboos and cultural norms that prevent sex or any form of coupling, and so there are more tools available to get those triggers going. So in the sense that when you're closer to a state of nature, you're also closer to the feelings of lust and violence that are naturally inherent in men. As you move further into civilization and with more rules and norms and taboos, that has a dampening effect on our lust and violence, she claims. So in order for that, because of that, we need more cues to overcome that if we want to have sex. So as the society progresses and we have more norms stopping us from having sex, we also have stronger and harder triggers in a stylized, accentuated, and displayed femininity that the Femme Fatale is a prime example of.
So this, I'm thinking of a couple interesting things from popular culture here. Have you seen the movie? I think it was Demolition Man with Wesley Snipes.
No, sorry. Yes, that's where he comes back into the future and releases and is released from prison or something like that.
Yeah, isn't Sylvester Stallone in it and Sandra Bullock?
Yes,
Okay, so I believe if I'm thinking of the right movie, it's the one where yeah they're in the future, right? Stallone goes to the future, and it's a very advanced Apollonian future like Star Trekky, where sex is like they don't have sex anymore. I think
that's correct.
they because they've advanced past it. So so
It's virtual,
so
if I
right.
remember. Yes,
So they would need in that world they would need the technologies and they would have to try extra hard. Their version of a femme fatale would be kind of even more advanced than ours, I guess, in order
yes,
to overcome this civilizing dampening force on our violence and urges, sexual
yes.
urges.
That's exactly it is. And so with the increasing technology, we also happen to have the tools to uh, display ourselves more ostentatiously.
Right, right. But they, yeah, in that civilization they didn't. What would you say about Star Trek then? Because there was Star Trek, maybe at least the second generation, the next generation was very. It seemed, I mean, not totally, but pretty sexless.
Yeah,
There was
uh,
like
it's science fiction. it's
right,
it probably missed out on a lot of that.
but I mean, but it speaks to her point though. As the more advanced we get, the more
Rules and
Apollonian we
regulations
get.
there are about how to engage that. There's more rituals. You have to do
Right.
this before you do that.
Very little violence. I mean, Worf is seen as kind of this savage almost because
Hmm.
his culture is used to the violence, and the Space Command is not.
Yes, I recall one episode. He said something to the effect that I would not sleep with human women. They're too delicate.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
I think that is in fact what happens to people as we get more civilized. That we become more delicate, both men and women. We find it harder to do labor. We complain more about bugs. We complain about the sun. We complain about everything. We
yes.
need air conditioning in order to survive. Um,
Betas.
we are more decadent, essentially,
Decadent, right?
and that's great. I feel much more comfortable in this more decadent world, and I think most people feel that way. If not, they would actually go back to nature and live a shorter, less comfortable life.
So okay, all right. We're getting a little bit off topic. I did this, but let's bring it back.
Okay, so yeah, Nefertiti and the Venus of Wallendorf are the first ones that she identifies. Then she goes into Claudia, also known as Lesba, who was a Roman femme fatale. Cicero, who lived just before, died, I guess, at the hands of Caesar Augustus, maligns her, and that was probably part of the reforms that Caesar Augustus did to try and stop adultery and sexual impropriety that was going on in the Roman Empire there. It didn't work very well. There was another poet, Catullus, I believe that's how you pronounce it, who loved her and worshipped her, essentially. He fell for her. Um, he, okay, well, here's her quote. Catullus, an admirer of her, turns her emotional ambivalence into sadomasochism. Essentially, she's ambivalent towards him. He's totally in love with her, and it's a sadomasochistic relationship at an emotional level at that point. It doesn't sound like it's actually physical, but he feels that way. He loves and he hates her at the same time. He can't get rid of her. No, I shouldn't say can't get rid of her. He doesn't want to get rid of her. He knows he should. Um, she's deadly. And others have referred to as adulteress, dominatrix, vampiricalistically draining the strength of all. Those who maligned her saw her as the bringer of sexually transmitted diseases. The other ones saw her as a goddess of love and beauty incarnate. So it, she brings out a whole range of emotions, from hatred from those who don't fall into her trap to absolute and total devotion from those who do.
It's got some power.
She, without a doubt, she is the most powerful sexual persona out there. Uh, she can influence
Wait,
much.
Who?
Mhm.
Claudia or Cleopatra?
Oh, both of them were femme fatales. They can ruin men, and in the case of Cleopatra, she ruined Mark Antony.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, okay, so let's move on to Cleopatra. So we're talking about Shakespeare's version of her. She loves Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, the play. Looks at Cleopatra as an as a really strong woman. She would label her as hermaphrodite. She can take the male personas at will, and she can take the female personas at will as well. And the femme fatale, she's able to seduce Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony to her will, essentially. Um, that's power. I guess when she got older, she was unsuccessful with um, Caesar Augustus, but that's the power of Cleopatra. I mean, she's a historical character, and I'm sure that Shakespeare knew something about that, the myths and legends that revolved around her. But in the play, she is described as really the archetypal femme fatale, according to Paglia. She's Isis, literally embodied, a goddess. But also for those who have not fallen into her spell, she's degraded verbally as much as possible behind her back, of course, because she also has real political power, or at least for a while she had political power when she had Caesar and Mark Antony at her beck and call. Yeah, Cleopatra is probably the strongest female character, not the most successful, but certainly the most powerful female character in the works of Shakespeare, according to Camille. And the best character, according to her, was Rosalind from As You Like It, but we'll get to her at a later time. But without a doubt, Cleopatra was the most powerful, and she was the femme fatale, the quintessential one.
The one to beat.
The one to beat, and that's a pretty tough one to beat, yes. Then she gets on to comparing um, romantic femme fatales.
Jeff, you look like a vampire.
Pardon?
You look like a vampire. I think it's because you're too close to your screen, I think.
Okay, there we go. Stepping back a bit. Okay, so then she's going to compare romanticism with sadism. Okay, the Marquis de Sade for her was a hero. His femme fatales dramatically and spectacularly enlarged the female character. For him, his characters are powerful. The femme fatales talk a lot. The romantic ones do not talk. Or very rarely. The Sadean women, the Sadean femme fatales, are action oriented. They go out and seek what they want, and they are victorious in pretty much every case. The romantic heroines that she refers to are silent, they're nocturnal, they're passive, they're sort of waiting for somebody to fall in love with them.
Passive? How are they femme fatales if they're passive?
They just sit there and look pretty.
And then still manage to ruin men's lives?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they set the trap and let men come to the trap.
Yes.
So
whereas the Sadean ones are much more active. They are from Paglia's
looking for trouble.
They are a much more complete and whole woman, and a much more powerful one. The Sadean femme fatales really did kill their men when they felt like it. She specifically mentions Madame de Clairville, which is, I guess, a euphemism for clear will, orgasmically rending her male victims limb from limb. This is a sign of her greater conceptual power. She believes that there's very few women out there who are the equal of men, but Sadean women are definitely there. And the Sadean femme fatale is probably the most dangerous out there. Certainly compared to romantic femme fatales, who are nothing compared to them. They would be eaten up and spit out by a Sadean femme fatale.
So Paglia likes the Sadean.
Yes, better. Much more than
the more aggressive type.
Yes, the romantic femme fatales have probably done more of a disservice to women than the Sadean ones. She really is impressed by Marquis de Sade, although she recommends you don't read them when you're about to eat. But yeah, the femme fatales, female femme fatales of the Sadean kind, outside of literature, are very rare. And here's one of her famous quotes: "There is no female Mozart for the same reason that there's no female Jack the Ripper." It's men that usually go out and do things. They have that um, the nudge, the three nudges that we talked about in the first session, um, that women don't have. Doesn't mean that women can't. It's just that men have a behavioral stimulus every day, several times a day in some cases, to go out and do something. When they succeed, they move civilization and society forward. When they fail, they go to jail. They become murderers. And
Right.
she makes a comment that there's very few female fetishists. It's a male thing. Males force kind of women to do that. Um, it's
Males are fetishists.
Yes, males are fetishists. There may be a few in the women, but it's unusual. There's a lot more male fetishists, uh, sexual serial killers, perverts than there are women. Because
Well, hold on.
yeah,
Sorry. Because what?
because again, men have to act in order to be men, whereas women are reminded every month that the psychological dynamic where a man has to act in order to be a man, and women doesn't have to do anything. They're just women because that's how their bodies work. Um, Leads to a whole range of activities, some good, some bad. Men. That's part of the reason there are more men in prison than women. It's also why there's more men in political power or in economic power at the top of businesses. It is how you become a man, what you do.
Okay. This the fetish thing though.
Yes.
Um, so she's saying women don't have. I mean, there's lots of women with submission and rape fantasies. Um,
So again, yes, if that's in fact the case, okay, there are women clearly who do that. The question is, are there more women or less women with these things? I would say that she would say that there are fewer women, and if there is an equal number, it's probably at males' behest. Men are the ones who seek out and pay for this more often than not.
I suppose. Well, also, I mean, it probably is true that men have a much wider and greater variety of weird fetishes, whereas I think women's is there's really only one. um, but that it's probably just exists to varying degrees in all women. I mean, it's too bad we don't have any women in this conversation because they could help this out a bit.
Well, we are speaking for a woman here, or I am trying to
That's
defend
true. We are.
her
So
position.
yeah, we are reading from Camille, but Camille's a very particular, strange kind of woman.
Um, okay. She certainly has her own way, and we all have our own ways in that sense. She's definitely articulated it better than the average man.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So after that, Camille goes on to talk about the romantic poems of William Blake, whom, and in particular, the Mental Traveler and the Crystal Cabinet. She sees Blake as being conflicted. On the one hand, he doesn't like the femme fatale because he looks at her as false advertising. At the same time, he's very much attracted to her, and you can see it hinting in through the poem, and she gives several examples of that. But the point that she wants to say is that really good art is, in fact, from a conflicted individual. And Blake is about as conflicted as you can be, in her opinion. And that's why he doesn't see it in many cases, but you find it if you read it after the fact. And she gives quite a lot from those two particular poems. Then she goes on to look at Samuel Taylor Coleridge, specifically the poem Christabel, which is about a lesbian vampire named Geraldine. This, according to her, shatters many of the notions of sexuality that most men hold dear. The idea that we are powerful because we have a penis, the idea that women have penis envy, like Freudian thing, it's thrown out the wall, out the door in this particular one. The female vampire, the lesbian vampire, doesn't need men, but she can enjoy them if she needs to.
She's a succubus.
Yes, precisely. The fact that she doesn't need men is a threat to in a sense, to men. But men don't want to do that, don't want to recognize that because it pops their delusions. This poem, from her perspective, has all of these popped delusions in it, which is one of the reasons she loves it. And anyway, you sort of have to read it and follow the story in it. Um, it's I've only just started it, so I haven't finished it, but it's different. And unfortunately, I can't get into too much of it because there's only one paragraph left. Um, her Part of the reason that she spends a lot of time with the femme fatale is because it's clearly the one that's most overlooked by the traditional scholars. And one of her goals in writing this book is to overcome that blindness that professional scholars have had with regards to great art. She wants to say, and here's a quote. Um, the amorality, the aggression, the sadism, the voyeurism, and the pornography in great art has been glossed over. She wants to bring it back to the front of perception and awareness, and that's why she spends so much time on the femme fatale. It's everywhere, literally, and we don't see them as much because we're blinded to them.
Why
And
are we blinded to them?
it, she speculates that perhaps there's a certain embarrassment from either religion or politics.
Religion, probably, yeah.
Yeah, but even in politics here in Canada, it's very difficult to talk about somebody else's moral misadventures. It's just not considered good form. And from her perspective, that might be great for politicians, but it's not good for understanding the real human condition. Um, the fact that it's difficult for people to admit, to even believe that men are inherently violent and lustful, and that it's civilization that's keeping us in check, and that anytime we enter into sexual relations with someone, it's a dangerous game you're playing, because men can easily not care about the consequences in civilization. The femme fatale is an example of that. When a man falls in love with a femme fatale, uh, and he's willing to give up anything and everything for her, imagine how dangerous that could be. You hear about, uh, there are stories of how women have convinced men to go and kill their former lovers or somebody else and ruin their lives for it and then leave them. That's the power that we have here. This woman can make a man betray her country, risk death.
So she's saying that when third wave feminists critique the ideas of femme fatale as objectifying or somehow bad for women, that that this is missing the point of the femme fatale, and we're totally missing the message, and the use, I guess, of the utility of femme fatale in art.
um, I don't know if it's the utility. If you happen to be a shogun in ancient Japan and you send your geisha over to as an assassin, that might be a usefulness, but she is that's not a real femme fatale from her perspective. She's the boss, right? Um, and she can ruin civilization. In a sense, it was a femme fatale, Cleopatra, who seduced two potential heirs to the Roman Empire, or the Roman Republic, and failed with the third. That changed history in a pretty different way. I mean, if Julius Caesar had actually had his son by Cleopatra as the inheritor instead of Octavian, history would have been very different. And that's the power that we're talking about here. Um, it's glossed over by many people, and it's almost denied as an existence today. That it's that denial it's not really there. That it's because she lacks political power that she has to seduce men. Um, that's uh, a misnomer of the femme fatale and of women's power throughout history. The power is very different from men, and the failure to see that is pathetic, first of all, blinding us to the differences between men and women.
Right, and she thinks modern feminism is further blinding us. It's
Yes.
working to blind us further about the differences.
Yes. It's working
and
to
the
delude us.
dangers within.
Yes. Working to delude us, I think is what she loves the word delusion. It appears so often.
Yes. Well, we're already deluded,
Yes.
but she thinks we're being deluded more. So then the futuristic dystopian society of the Demolition Man is that's just a whole other magnitude of delusion, is what she
Yes.
would say.
Yes.
That they think men and women in that society are virtually, they're all kind of asexual almost,
Yeah,
and
they've lost a lot of their humanity.
right.
Civilization actually does take away our animal instincts. She doesn't say that's necessarily a bad thing, but it always comes back. And when you play with them, with your animal instincts, you can't get hurt.
So denying the animal instincts exist will come back to bite us, I guess, is what
Yes,
she's saying.
they exist, and you can't really get rid of them. You can try, you can think. You say you would never assault a woman. No, if the situations were right, there was not enough law and order, and the triggers were there, any man would commit a violent sexual act.
Right. Or could be led to do violence, or could be led to do all sorts of nefarious things.
Yes, from a civilizational point of view.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. So next week we're covering what?
Yeah, in 2 weeks we're going to do the second most popular one in history, The Beautiful Boy.
The Beautiful Boy.
The Beautiful Boy, yes. It's not very popular today because it's pretty much illegal.
Yes.
She's talking about the boy who's just past puberty but hasn't grown a beard yet. And throughout history, this has been an incredibly popular one. Even Julius Caesar was one for a while, and to the King of Tyre. There was the term catamite that described how it was a relationship. It was a market relationship. In our world today, this is an embarrassing thing to talk about, and the fact that it's been throughout our Western history and people don't talk about it today, she thinks is a scandal in and of itself, and it is impoverishing us. You got to be aware that it's there.
Right. We used to perform human sacrifices too, though. So do we need to should we find value in all things that came from the past or were popular in the past?
No, without a doubt, civilization is much, much better. However,
I think because I think the default answer to this would be like, well, this is obviously bad.
That's the default answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it was always bad, and the reasons that we think that it's bad today are not necessarily always true. And she gives some quotes as to some scientific evidence of that, it seems. The point that she wants to make is that we are repressing this in our civilization, and it will come back to bite us. And we see this quite regularly as in TV, where priests and coaches are being taken away in handcuffs. It's again playing with fire. It's playing with nature. It's not going to go away. It's part of our nature.
So she's suggesting that if we recognize and factor in these sexual personas that are taboo, that we might better be able to deal with them or in society.
If she says that, I haven't read that yet.
Well, I've seen her in interviews say that she believes pedophilia should be legal or at least accepted.
Pedestrophilia, right? Not pedophilia. There's a difference.
She used the word pedophilia. I hope she meant pedestry.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to say. The fact is that when our civilization collapses, it'll probably come back with full force.
All right. All right. Well, I think that covers everything for this. 2 weeks from now. That'll be a fun one. Tune in next time, comrades.
Yeah, and just to be clear, anything I say here is trying to defend or speak as Camille Paglia, presenting her ideas and answering them as if I were her. They're not necessarily my opinions.
Yes, we are not. We are not. I am not pro pederast, and I don't think. I don't
Right.
think he would say he is either. All right, thanks, Jeff.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, see you next time.
Absolutely.
Bye now.